grand scheme of things of people who annoy me, you've got on the one side MAGAs who not only voted for Donald Trump but actively support everything that guy does, don't seem to care that it's impacting the world in so many negative ways. And then on this side, you have your average whiny ass white liberal who seems to think the world owes them something. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. If you can't tell, I'm torqued a little bit right now. So, um, got an email from a reader, and there are several comments on the Facebook page, and that's fine. Life goes on the way it does. Who doesn't like the defense of the Staunton police that I offered for their security at the April 19th rally in downtown Staunton? All right, here we go. We're gonna have some fun with this. Oh yeah. The guy named Andy Sipser in this case, a self-styled geezer who decided it was okay to just talk down to me and call me dense. That's called pushing the asshole button, and you're getting it right now. He wrote today to express his displeasure with my exculpation, his word, of the Stanton Police Department for its security plan at this past weekend's protest rally at the Augusta County Courthouse. Now, some quick background on that, in case you missed it back on April 5th, so 2 weekends ago. Police flubbed the response to two incidents at a protest rally at the courthouse, one involving a neo-Nazi tow truck driver who drove recklessly a few feet from the large crowd, was pulled over by police, and was let off with a warning. The second involving an unidentified man in a different truck who brandished a gun at rally attendees. Now, I've been the only person in the local media to write about either incident. If you read the News Leader, if you read the News Virginian, the Daily Progress, if you watch TV, these things didn't happen. Where are they when we need them? In the case of the tow truck driver, my investigation into that one led to criminal charges being filed against the driver, Jeffrey Armitage Stanton. In fact, I had to go to the police station, swear this thing out, fight with a magistrate to get a charge lodged against this guy. Okay, none of that happens if I don't take the case and take the lead and get the ball rolling in this. All right, anyway, the evisceration from this Mr. Sipser guy. He says, and I'm going to try to read the letter here verbatim and not do editorial comments until I get to the end. Just read your exculpation of the Stanton Police Department's closure of all the streets around the county courthouse on Saturday, and I must say I'm in complete disagreement with your conclusions. This sweeping response to a possible, let me stress possible, threat to demonstrators is over the top as a Trumpian deportation of anybody who might be a criminal. By the way, the email from Andy is on the website. You can read it for yourself at later. In fact, I'll try to link to it here. It's already on the website. I've already posted it on Facebook. Okay. By essentially cordoning off the protesters where they could neither be seen nor heard, the Stanton PD gave the MAGA jerks who disrupted the previous demonstration a huge win. The smoke-spewing, gun-brandishing wackos failed to shut down the demonstration they were protesting, but can pat themselves on the back for essentially doing so 2 weeks later. How's that for a twofer? What remains unclear to me is whether the decision to isolate the protesters in this fashion was made by the police or whether it was made by Stanton administrative officials. And it's unclear whether protest organizers were consulted about this move beforehand and consented to it. If so, I have to say I'm disappointed. Back in the day, this kind of response would have resulted in a march from the courthouse through the downtown city streets, bringing the protest to the people who were otherwise excluded from it. You can see why I'm torqued at the whiny ass white liberals amongst us here. So my question back to Mr. Zipser and others who have raised issue with my column on the Stanton PD response on social media is, what would you have done if you were in charge? Keep in mind, this wasn't a possible threat. A driver used the open streets on April 5th to make actual threats with his rolling 2-ton weapon on multiple occasions. I know this personally. I was among those on the sidewalk in front of the courthouse when Armentrout drove his truck by us at a high rate of speed. We're all aware of the multiple instances of people using vehicles as weapons to menace people at political protests just over the hill from us here in Charlottesville. We have the awful case of a neo-Nazi ramming his car through a crowd of counter-protesters at a high rate of speed at the Unite the Right rally in 2017, killing one protester, Heather Heyer, and injuring 35 others. Do we expect the city to just let folks drive through a protest and hope they don't maim people? The Stanton PD did the only thing it could do to guarantee the safety of those attending the protest rally this past weekend. Okay, now to the point about the security plan isolating the protesters, the plan shutting down the demonstration, supposedly, and the need to bring the protest, quote, to the people who were otherwise excluded from it. If we want to have impact, we don't do a protest on a Saturday when it's convenient for us to attend. But the local government's closed for business. But rather we protest on a work day a weekday during business hours when it's not convenient for us, but we can take the protest straight to local government. And we probably don't protest in center left Staunton either. But we protest maybe in Augusta County, which voted 70% plus for Trump in each of the last three election cycles, has a 7-0 MAGA majority on its board of supervisors, and has BOS elections in November. Or maybe we do so in Waynesboro, which went 52% for Trump in the past election, went for Trump in all three of the past three cycles. And also has a MAGA former vice mayor who is still on city council trying to do Doge-like things, well, Dodge, either way, with the city government. Or alternatively, even in addition, we don't protest at one of the city halls or the Augusta County Government Center, but instead where people actually are, maybe in front of a well-trafficked shopping center or one or both of the local city parks. Third point I want to make here, if we think asking for permission in the form of applying for a protest permit gets in the way, then we don't need to seek official sanction. But instead, we can just get together peacefully and do what we think is necessary, risking being arrested for acts of civil disobedience, like blocking city streets or highways, blocking business at City Hall or the government center, blocking ingress to a popular shopping center in the process, okay? When we seek official approval for the exercise of our constitutional right to protest, we should expect officials to put curbs on our expressions of enthusiasm for our cause. If you can't tell, I studied the 1960s civil rights movement. I was very fortunate when I was a student at EVA 30 plus years ago to take a history of the civil rights movement class with Julian Bond, who was there. He organized people through SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He put us through training seminars that civil rights protesters in the 1960s were put through to get a feel for how exactly things need to be done. That was very enlightening for me. It's something that could be used today and should be used today as we are seeking to stand up to the Trump administration. The civil rights movement teaches us we're not going to get things going by doing things within the rules of the system that we're seeking to change. If we want change, we're going to have to be willing to get in people's faces, maybe get run over by a redneck in a big white truck. I don't say that facetiously. At least be willing to maybe get in the line of danger there. Maybe be willing to fill the jails because we're mass protesting and we force the hands of local officials to take action as a way of trying to get them to take notice. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Think back to if any of you watching this study the civil rights movement, a strategy of Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders, Ralph Abernathy, etc., who led the civil rights movement back in the 50s and then into the 60s, was we're going to stand, we're going to protest the injustice of the system. And if in the course of us protesting, we are deemed to be in violation of laws regarding peaceful protests, mass protests, we're going to be peaceful. But if they tell us that we can't do this and they're going to throw us in jail, we have to be willing to go to jail. That's what civil disobedience is all about. It's not about just saying what you want to say and expressing your First Amendment rights. It's about being willing to go to jail to do the right things. That's how you get society to take notice. Back to the St. PD shutting down the streets, they're just trying to keep the city from getting sued. That's all it is. If you uh, that's why I'm willing to cut the police some slack. They're just doing what they're supposed to do in this day and age. If we want people to see us, if we want people to see us, we are going to need to be willing to step out from behind the barricades. That's my point here.